All right, this one's from across the pond, so to speak. Emily. Hi, Emily from Glasgow here. Hi, Emily. I like watching your show, but it grates like nails on a chalkboard when you sometimes call Scottish people scotch. We are not a drink. Other than that, keep up the good work. So it's more of a comment than a question actually,
yeah.
but I don't know when I've ever referred to Scottish people as Scotch. Ever.
We've gotten random. First, let me start by saying, yes, we know that Scotch is a drink. It is not the way you refer to Scottish people.
Right.
We get this comment occasionally on YouTube, or especially on random videos. I think what the difference is, I think what they're actually hearing is not what we're saying. Mm-hmm. So if I am Scottish, keep in mind, I have a horrible fake Scottish accent, which is why I won't do it generally. But for purpose of this little video here, I'll say this. When you're talking to someone who is Scottish, they pronounce Scottish different than Americans pronounce Scottish. So if you're saying Scottish, if you're actually Scottish, you're saying the O like ought. So you're saying Scot-ish, and you're having a hard guttural stop, a hard guttural T, like Scot-ish. So you're kind of separating the word into two halves. Americans tend to, or at least we do, I'll speak for us, say it fast and kind of push it together and say the ah instead of an o, as for the O in Scottish.
Scotch.
So Scottish.
Scotch.
So if we say Scottish fast, it almost sounds like Scotch. So we're not saying or pronouncing it Scotch. We're saying Scottish. But I don't know if the mics can't pick it up, or if you're just hearing it wrong, or if it's not used to the way you are hearing it, way you are used to hearing it said. Because in Scotland it's pronounced Scottish. It's again, my horrible accent. I apologize. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a way we could train ourselves to at least try and slow it down, like Scottish, like pronounce the T, if not doing the Scot.
It sounds
sound, but
so
do
unnatural.
Scottish.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah,
and we sound even dumber. No, it's
so you go the other way. You wind up sounding like a bad Kennedy impression, like I am proud of my Scottish ancestry. Except he was Irish.
Park my car and Harvard Yard.
Park my car. Yep.
There's a lot of words that I've found in doing videos, and I'm sure you found as well, that are a bit difficult for Americans or people who didn't grow up saying them to pronounce them. Just like, if you have not grown up trilling your R's, doing the thing with trilling your R's, I find it impossible. I can't do it, nor would I really try. And that leaves people like, oh, well, you're not saying it right. Well, yeah, I know. It's my voice, my vocal cords, my instrument is not trained that way. We get occasional comments on the way that Americans pronounce ski and do. Where you kind of say it fast or say skin do. It's not skin like your skin color. It's not skin do. It's SGIAN. Sgian. You're actually pronouncing almost all the letters where we're not really used to those noises coming out of my face hole. So it's, I tried it. The trick I use for ski and do is say it like skiing, but leave off the last G. So skiing, do, for that one. But it's not words we're used to saying and you're used to hearing as a Scottish person in the same way that we're used to saying them here in the States.
I bet there's a bit of a regional difference too, because I know that folks from down south tend to they enunciate a little bit slower, a little bit more precisely, and I bet if they say Scottish, it's not as bad as if somebody from up here in Pennsylvania is saying Scotch. We as this part of the country tends to talk faster than other parts of the country.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? So I think that's part of it also, is you're a victim of our Philadelphia-ness, if you may say.
The thing I found most amusing was the word Scotch in general has a weird history to it in and of itself. Because you poked at it a little bit making sure we are understanding the question and the history of
Correct.
the etymologicalness of the word. And Scotch started out as an English word for Scottish people.
Correct. And basically it worked kind of like this. Don't quote me exactly, but back in like the 15th century or so, 16th century, when what's called early modern English was developing. Before that, they would say Scottish, and then early modern English started to blend words together and smooth them out.
Right.
So Scottish became Scotch in English, and so that was, but in like Shakespeare, I guess apparently some of his stuff is like he uses both terms, one is Scottish and Scotch, almost interchangeably. And then by the time of say Robert Burns in the late 18th century, it was more fashionable in Scotland, at least in the lowlands, to have a more anglicized way of speaking. So they adopted Scottish as their self-descriptor. And then right after that, in the early 19th century and forward, as the national identity started to reform and revive, everybody was like, no. That was an anglicized version that we adopted. We're going to reject it and go back to Scottish Scot.
You meant Robert Burns had Scotch as the
yes
correct.
There's even a letter. There's an example of a letter he wrote where he's talking about Auld Lang Syne, the song, and he actually uses the word. It is very much a Scotch thing to do to write a song like this or something like that. So
yeah, then it became the people were referred to as Scottish, and things of Scotland were referred to as Scotch.
Mm-hmm. And that was mostly because of whiskey, because it was there were so many knockoff whiskeys around that the distillers in Scotland realized that they needed to make sure people understood that this is the real deal. So they sort of recoined or reminted the term to refer specifically to whiskey that had been made in Scotland, as opposed to whiskey from any place else.
Yeah, and we get lambasted on occasion for referring to this as Scotch. You can refer to it as whiskey. You can refer to it as Scotch. Both are correct. If you go into a liquor store anywhere in the States, it will have Scotch, it will have bourbon, it will have Irish whiskey. So it will have different sections, and you can refer to it. In Scotland, they would refer to it as whiskey. That's it. It's just whiskey. Yeah. But you're also in Scotland, so obviously it's just whiskey there, because you don't have to say it's Scotch whiskey because
I wonder if their stores would say something like foreign whiskeys or something.
And
like
they have
that.
Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's go ahead, laugh it up, monkey boy. But yeah, so anyway, it's the idea of Scottish or Scot, a Scot, has been the preferred form for over 200 years.
Yeah, of referring to people.
Referring to people, but as referring to exports, it was still used for marketing purposes.
Correct. So if you ever hear an American say what sounds like Scotch, but listen closely and see if they're actually saying Scottish really quick, because again, we pronounce it differently than it is pronounced, especially in the Northeast where we speak fast, than it is pronounced in Scotland. So,
yep.
Or Scottish.
And we're not going to try and say Scottish, because then we sound like we're mocking the language, and that would be even worse.
I know. And I can't
That'd
imagine.
Be stupid.
Yes, it would sound very stupid. And I can't imagine being like mid-sentence and being like, yes, so I was talking to a Scottish person about doing this, and then he talked like it sounds like I had an aneurysm mid-sentence. No, we're going to continue saying Scottish the way that we normally say it.
I might try to slow it down a little bit, just see if I can, to say Scottish as opposed to Scottish. Okay. I don't know. I'm just wondering if I can do it.
Yeah.
But it goes against my nature as a Northeast person. Basically, in Philadelphia, you always talk fast. You got a lot of things to say, and you got time. Time is money. You can't
get
waste time. You got to get out. Come on. Get this joint over with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Sure thing.
All right. I hope that clears something up, kind of. Americans, back me up. Yay, nay. Are we? Do you say it Scottish as fast as we do, or do you say it different? Canadians, Germans, Germans probably say something very different. Kiltenflugenbergen. So, Canadians, Australians.
You speak German. You're not allowed to make a bad joke like that. Anyway, I think it's regional. I really think it's probably a regional thing.
I love the German word for bagpipe is Dudelsack. So, it's a great word. Anyway, let us know how you say it. Do you slow it? Do you say it fast? Could people misinterpret you saying it Scotch? I am curious. Okay.
That's enough.
I'm done.
That's fine.
Done. Fine.
Shh. Let go. Let go. Deep breath. Crystal clue persuasion. Come on.
Okay. Mac, what do we got next? You never quite realize how difficult some place names from different cultures and even just regular words from different cultures are to pronounce until you have to record yourself saying them and putting it on video for many people to see. Let me know in the comments what words, either Scottish, Irish, Gaelic, whatever, what words from a different culture that you were not brought up in are most difficult for you to say? That's the question I want answered today.